Time's valuable, so let's go ahead and get started. If anyone shows up, they can kind of get in the middle of it. Basically, oh hey Chris, glad to see you. Basically, what I'm trying to do is there's a lot of things happening with the town, the county, and the Forest Service and the BLM as far as ATV use is going. And I thought that it would be a good idea if we had a local club so that we could have a little more say and help out with maintaining some roads and trails with the Forest Service and the BLM. You know, like this, for instance, the Snowmobile Club has a contract with the Forest Service that there's certain trails that are maintained every year, and then if we want to extend on those trails, then we let them know, and then they go through their process, and sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on what it is. But and then we add to the trails and go from there. Also, the town of Lakeview has been working on an ATV ordinance for the town. It's been tabled temporarily because of an interpretation of a law for crossing the highway, but that's another reason I wanted to get a club together, was so that we, with what's going on in the town, we could have a little more input and a little more say on what's happening there. Also, the fairgrounds has a really nice track. The problem is that there's no maintenance on the track. So if we had a club that you know, we could maintain that track and have some local events, family-oriented stuff, you know, to give the kids something a little more constructive to do other than some of the things that they're involved in now. So I don't want to just start a club and say this is what the club is. I'd like everybody's input on you know, what your interests are, what you'd like to see out of a club. I've got a lot of experience with clubs as a president and a secretary treasurer. So I've got a lot of good input, but I'd like to find out what everybody would like to see out of a club. Does anybody have anything to add to what I've said so far for a reason to have a club, or you know, something fun to do too? You know, it's some clubs, and the way clubs are here in Lakeview, it's kind of difficult, because what happens is you get a lot of support, a lot of people that support the club, but you only have a handful of people that end up doing anything with the club. So what I'm trying to do with this is make it to where it's fun, and not everything has to be a club outing, but if there's you know, a group of people getting together and going out somewhere, and we've got the trail maps that the Forest Service has, and we've been talking with the Forest Service on connectability is a big one, because the maps that they have right now, a lot of the roads aren't connectable. And so talking with Amanda Warner-Thorpe, who is in charge of the travel management plan for the Fremont-Wainema National Forest, that's her big goal, is to connect everything to where everything is connected. So if there's you know, you got your maps out, and this map, you can't get from this point to this point, and there's roads in between, then I would like to be able to, without it being a total club event, you know, if you go out and you see those roads, then you can report back to the club and say, hey, this is what's going on with the road, it'll need this, it'll need that. Or if you go out and you're cutting a log out of the road or something, you know, that's trail maintenance. And everything that is done maintenance-wise on trails, talking with Parks and Recreation, is considered volunteer time, which also goes toward monies. Like if we wanted to do some more improvements to the track, and it's going to cost $20,000 to do whatever we're going to do, Parks and Recreation has grants available, but we have to
provide massive volunteers.
yes, thank you. And
almost $20 an hour.
Right.
So, it really
So,
helps
so
also.
your volunteer time and it's man hours, it's not, the group goes out for 2 hours and does something and it's worth 2 hours of work. It's 2 hours for each person that's involved, goes towards, matching the funds to what's going on, so. With the BLM, I know that, with the travel management plan, it was nice to see that there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was shut down. There was some things, but I don't know what the it's newer than what the Forest Service has done, because the Forest Service did theirs first and then the BLM did theirs afterwards. And I'm not really up to speed on the travel management plan for the BLM.
Well, they're different. When I worked with the Forest Service on the road to Siskiyou, I worked with the motor vehicle use map, and it started from national direction, basically saying in certain areas that user-created routes or it started in the desert states where you could go anywhere. There wasn't any natural boundaries. So they started from a different place. The travel management plan we're doing is our normal one that we do every time we do a resource management plan. So we don't have direction to necessarily shut down all maintenance level 1 roads and all that kind of stuff, of course. Ours is just a normal, true blue, nothing above our resource area, push at all. So and we don't really expect any changes. We have about 2,500 miles of system roads that we somewhat actively go out and maintain, another 2,500 miles of just existing routes. When we do a resource management plan, the biggest change will be that right now, on about 70% of our area, you can cross-country travel. And we expect that to probably go away. But it'll,
Completely?
no, outside of places like, we're trying to set up about 6 different smaller areas, like around the Hawkins Flats, and you can ride wherever you want, of course, the sand dunes in the North Lake area. But for the most part, most people I see out there, outside like trappers, they use existing roads or designated roads anyway, so I think for most folks that won't be as big of an issue. And it should be a lot cleaner process than Forest Service went through.
Okay.
And your input will carry it pretty far.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned through the snowmobile club, is that when you have an organized club that that is representing an area, you've got a lot more say in what's going on. So when there's issues that come up that are threatening to our, the way that we do things and what we're doing, then we have a little more say on what's happening. Also, if there's something that we're excited about, say they're gonna open up that Coghlan area as a riding area that's free ride or whatever, then we can get on board and support that. And you have to keep in mind that there's the environmental groups out there that are always trying to get more and more and more, and they're not gonna stop doing that. So if we have an organized club here, at least we can get a foothold and kind of help keep what we've got right now, and manage it, and it's all about being responsible. And if we preach that in a club, being responsible users of the land and taking care of it and maintaining, the roads and trails that we use, then it's gonna go a long ways. I've been working also with, there's a couple projects going on here in this area, and it's eastern Oregon, but mostly centered in Lake County, with through Parks and Recreation Division. As far they're calling it the Outback, Oregon Outback Waypoints is one of the projects that's going on. And what that is they're trying to get connectability through the entire state of Oregon. And they're starting here in eastern Oregon because we've got so much public land that's available for everybody to use. And you've got these Forest Service markers that are for like your roads, the brown markers that have the numbers on them and everything. What they're trying to do, or what they're wanting to do, is put GPS coordinates on some of these markers and have them available at certain locations, and have a downloadable map for your phone or GPS, so that you can put in the waypoints where you're at, and it'll show you right where you're at, and the roads that you can travel from there, and routes that come into towns so that you can resupply. And So that's one of the big projects that's going on. It's the Oregon Outback Waypoints, is what they're called. And they've been spending a lot of time and money over in this area to help us get off the ground. But everybody that I've talked to has said that in order for all of this to happen, we really have to have a local club. Because there's gonna be a lot of volunteer stuff, you know, putting some signs in, clearing routes and things like that, you know, the Forest Service and the BLM, I'm sure it's don't have the resources and the money available to do all that stuff, and so it helps to have a club to take on some of that responsibility. So that's
BLM right now is considering, because they came and talked to us, so they're considering, you know, what it's gonna look like in the ground, whether or not people are gonna use it, and all that kind of thing. So folks from town think it's useful, and everything is pretty time to let the field manager know that.
right.
And basically what they're trying to do too, and I think between the lines is, they don't really come out and say it, but I think they're really trying to designate the backcountry discovery route that runs through the state, and some other groups have tried to produce a map several times, and on the environmental groups shut them down, so if you do it, we'll sue you. So I think this is kind of their workaround for that. So it'll cover more than that, just that area, but mainly the main junctions that go along that route through our area.
And it's
And
nice.
if that's successful,
Yeah,
branch out
yeah.
farther east to major junctions.
And it's nice to see some people in these positions in the government that are willing to work with us in getting some of this stuff accomplished, because you never know who you're going to have in charge. And right now is a good time with the Forest Service and the BLM to get on board and get some things done. Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'd also mentioned, we were talking about the BLM stuff. Most of you probably know Tom Harris, maybe at Klamath Falls. He owns property up by the sand dunes. He's a real active jeeper at Klamath Falls and Pacific. He used to be the president of the Pacific Northwest, and we're both very close. But he came in about 20 years ago, and over the course of about 10 years, designed and planned a bunch of really good jeep loops in the desert that he'd like to propose when the travel management plan comes around. So we have them basically covering every major area under 3.2 million acres. So that's another thing that would be good to have a group review and see if they're.
Are you guys gonna have maps for the BLM and Forest Service for the public to be able to know where they can go and where they can't go? I mean.
Yeah, when the process is over, we'll have better maps right now, our transportation maps.
And the maps that you're gonna have, are they gonna have, you know, are you gonna be able to look at the map and tell on that map what locations you can travel on and which ones you can't, or?
Yeah, so the motor vehicle use maps, at least when I was working with them, they're problematic in that you almost need two maps to see where you're going. Because when I was working, they wouldn't show anything on private land, so you kind of have a road go and stop. And there'd be a patch or nothing, and then continue on. So BLM doesn't have to follow those rules. So I think the initial travel management maps that we'll produce will be a little more user-friendly than the motor vehicle use maps, but not quite exactly what we want as a user group. But I'm trying to get a grant to produce sportsman's maps, like they have out of Burns, somebody you're probably familiar with. But I think it'll be a lot more user-friendly in the end. So they're in the works.
Okay.
And if the club was going to go do a project somewhere, was interested in a certain area, I could always produce maps pretty quick for you.
And right now the Forest Service is working on a new Outback map, it's called. It has state, private, BLM I think is on there. So there's a lot of different, it's interagency and it covers all the areas, so it should be better than just the real old Fremont map and then your motor vehicle use map.
Okay.
It's kind of a mix between the current BLM recreation map and the Forest Service map.
Yeah.
And it's still probably not going to get what you want because it's still only half inch to the mile. But it's the newest version of the map, and like I said, we're hoping to come up with a sportsman's map to cover a lot of it to use the detail you're probably looking for.
I'll just write it, Richie.
Well, I took a big map of our area that you can buy from the Forest Service, and then I took all the travel management maps, and there's like 11 of them, a bunch of them. 12. and then folded them out and marked on this other map, you know, and highlighted. And it's pretty difficult. There's some roads that are on travel management map that don't even match the map that you can buy. But there's a lot of stuff that is good, but there's a lot of things that are problematic too. And then one of the things, you know, talking with Amanda, that one of the biggest issues is there'll be like a road that you know you have to trail your vehicle to unload, and it only goes for a mile up and a mile back, and it doesn't connect anywhere. There's, you know, so you might as well take that road off the map, because nobody in their right mind is going to go up there and unload, ride for a mile, and come back and then load up and go somewhere else. So connectability is the big thing, and finding routes that connect certain areas together. You know, it don't have to have everything open, but as long as you can, if you're riding in this area, and there's a few roads that you can ride on, but you can't cross over to this other map because that road doesn't connect. You know, that's the kind of things that I want to work on. And talking with Amanda, there's a lot of miles of road, and I've got an email here that actually says 174 miles of road that was
Designated motorized vehicle
Yeah.
trails.
yes, that they were, if we have a club that would maintain and take care of it, they could open back up for us. And most of those roads are ones that were shut down through the travel management plan. A lot of them are, you know, roads that are starting to get overgrown and things like that. And you know, some of them are roads that a lot of us that are used to traveling them for hunting or whatever, you know, that all of a sudden there's a big bump in the road and a sign that says you can't go there anymore. Then we can get, you know, we can get some of that stuff back, and as long as we can take care of it. So it's a big deal.
So what's the connectivity like in that system, do you know?
What's that now?
What's the connectivity? Is it a bunch of little short ones?
It depends on what map you're looking at. Some of them, the connectivity is not too bad, and some of them it's real bad. So,
So 170 might only be 100.
174 miles of road and I don't know what roads those are. You know, that's something that we'll have to discuss with the Forest Service and find out, you know, how that's gonna be spread out to work best for the Forest Service and for OHV users. There's a lot of potential to connect areas a lot better, so.
How many miles do you guys know of mixed-use trails you guys, that's the first you'll say? So those are designated only, so only ATVs is what you're talking about.
Well,
Motorized, ATV and motorcycle.
let me find it.
Right, so there should be a bunch of mixed-use roads on top of that, right?
Yeah, and with that 173, so I'm Nicole, and I am brand spanking new to the Lakeview Ranger District. So I'm here because Amanda and Erica, the people who know more about the travel management and this whole thing, are both ill tonight. So I'm here stepping in, so I don't have a whole lot to offer you, but I did get some information, and that 173 miles, it's not just opening up the roads for use, but it's reopening them for a better riding experience. So not making them big wide roads that are just sort of boring, but giving you the better ride experience, putting in the challenges that you guys like to see, making them ATV trails, not roads, two-track dirt roads that you ride on, but real riding trails. But that's, like Richie said, it's gonna take partnership and working together, you guys applying for grants, getting the funding. There's a lot more funding available through like Polaris and some of those other ATV brands. Is that the right? Yeah, that are for doing the work, not for planning. And with this travel management, with that 173 miles, the planning portion of it is almost non-existent. It's a lot quicker, it's a lot easier to focus on those 173 miles to start with. You guys getting the, working with the Forest Service, getting the grants together, working on that connectivity issue.
In this, I was just going back over this, it says there's 174 miles of motorized trails that were former MLI roads, and I don't know what an MLI road.
ML1.
Oh, is that ML1?
Yeah.
Okay,
Which means they're always tested to be closed.
Okay, that need to be maintained or converted into OHV trails, so, it's a good opportunity. And, you know, I know that, you know, it's just, a few of us here that showed up today, but I've got, 65 signatures from people that are, interested and support this. You know, typically, if you've got, like, say, 20 people in a club, you're gonna have 5 or 6 active members. So you take that, 60 some odd people, you know, that's about 20 active members. And with 20 active members, we can do a lot of good. And it's fun, you know. And like to have, like, one meeting a month, just to kind of, so we can all keep track of what's going on. We need to have some officers. We need to be structured. We've got to, you know, apply for the nonprofit organization, tax exempt, and do everything, you know, by the book and the way it should be. And I've got a lot of support from other clubs all over the state that want to help and want to make this work over here. We've got other clubs that would like to really see the motorcycle part of it, not just the ATV, but the motorcycle part of it take off over here also, because Alturas and Cedarville and Klamath, they would all like to, you know, us to have something over here where they can come over here and play and spend some money in the town. It's a big economic thing for this area also. So,
So let me know when you want me to jump in.
go for it.
Okay, so first thing, we should have introduced ourselves so we know who we're with. My name is Mike Cuff. I live here in Lakeview. I was born and raised in Clackamas, so I still have web feet. Otherwise, in the Navy for a really long time. But then I went to work for Department of Homeland Security down in Imperial County, California, which is the home of Glamis. Although I don't participate too much in the sand part, I do participate and have participated in a lot of off-road riding and racing. I've done the Baja 1000, Baja 500, and was a race promoter for a couple of years. I brought back in National Hare and Hound Series back into Central California after an absence of about 25 years. So, coming up here, I actually work with the Forest Service, although that is not my hat in this particular presence right now. And I want that to be known because I enjoy the off-road stuff. I have a passion for it, but I also enjoy the job that I have that puts milk in the refrigerator. So I have to be very careful, you know, what I do. I do know Chris. I obviously know Scott. You are new to me, Nicole, but I'm sure we'll meet.
I've been here 3 weeks, so
Okay,
I'm new to everyone.
Oh, so you're new, Nicole. Okay. So anyway, so when I first got here, I spent some time with Richie trying to figure out what all we had, because I really missed riding and racing my motorcycle. And I met Chris by virtue of the folks up in Bend that wanted to put on the off-road race up in Paisley, the Paisley 200. So I already kind of knew what I was kind of getting into before I even got here, but now that I've been here, there's some refinement to all of this. So in talking with Richie and Scott and some other folks here in town, pretty much what I came up to, pretty much what I've come up to is that, like Richie's saying, is we have a lot of potential for a lot of fun stuff, whether it be recreating, riding, whether it be bikes or quads, side-by-sides, it doesn't make a difference to me. But what I do notice is that we don't have organization. Having come from the San Diego area, where it was a daily battle, and I mean battle, to keep roads and trails open for users, it came to the point to where we had to rethink our approach on how to keep these roads and trails open. And pretty much what it boiled down to was we had to form partnerships. We had to be able to talk the same language. We had to be straight up with everybody because everybody's got their own agenda. And so what that did is it caused us to form what was called the San Diego Off-Road Coalition. This organization's been around for a very long time, has been in the middle of many battles. And Chris, I think you and I have talked about this, I'm not going to pick on you, but BLM, who owns Glamis and the Pearson Milk Fetch, that battle's been going on for years and years. Well, a couple of years ago, it was finally resolved, and that resolved meaning that they reopened the riding area that had been closed for a very long time through some additional monies that the users came up with to restudy the whole plant thing. So there is potential for partnerships. And what I found amazing is that Bill and the Forest Service, the folks down there didn't even know that the American Motorcyclist Association were actually partners with them, that they were actually partners with the Blue Ribbon Coalition. And so as we start kicking this stuff around here, we need to be aware that there are, as Richie said, some other folks out there that want to help us, and that can help us in a lot of different ways. I just went and finally got a dual sport because I got frustrated with having to trailer up and drive a mile and a half or two to park next to the pool to go right up in the forest. Well, and then a couple of weeks ago, we went up by Paisley and did some riding up there. So I'm looking at all of this and I'm going, we got some great stuff here, and even some world-class stuff here. So, so I was approached by Rob Thornton. It's been probably 4 or 5 months ago to help him with the ATV ordinance. And like Richie said, we're kind of at a stop right now because of some verbiage that ODOT has in their rules that has to do with where we can cross the street and how we cross the street. So we're kind of at a holding pattern there. I was also approached by the owner of the KTM shop over in Medford, wanting to know if they could put on an ISDE event over here, which is it's an event where it's usually less than 100 miles. They will bring in, he says, up to about 200 riders, and it's pretty much an all-day event. And they're looking at trying to put one on here, although we do know that it ain't going to happen this year. But they're looking at doing over the fairgrounds and having it start there and then go wherever we can go from there to go and equate to approximately 100 miles. My first ISDE will be in China Hat in May, although I was a member of the Lobos out of Clackamas for a long time. I never got to participate because I was always overseas. So anyway, he also called me up. So he called me up last week, Thursday, and to let me know that him and about 9 other folks are going to come over here on the 19th of April, which is the day before Mother's Day, to go and kind of scout out some roads and trails and some other things. So like Richie's saying, there is some activity on the west side wanting to come over here to the east side, and they're aware that we have probably that 172 miles, as well as the roads and the other things we have available for off-road use, but they want to start checking out what's going on. So as we know, at least here in Lake County, there's some economic instability going on. This is another way to bring money in, which was the main reason for the ATV ordinance to try to get passed, because we realized that over in Moab, when those folks set up their 2-week-long jamboree over there, that they realized, and I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, and I've got them at home, I didn't bring them, but there was like in the millions of dollars that those folks bring in, during their jamboree. It's a two-week period of time that people just go on organized trail rides and do some things. So then, along with all of that, I was able to meet and talk and spend time with the 3 gentlemen from the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Department who assisted us in putting in the ATV track over the fairgrounds. So with that, I asked them, and I have a copy of the full grant package. I asked them what was the possibility of being able to go and do something else with that track over there that is maybe not conducive to everybody being able to use it, like especially the little kids. And they said, it may be kind of tough, but we can do whatever you want to do, provided you have the paperwork and the support to do that. So I also approached the fairgrounds because I know that at one time there were some mud bogs or mud drags over here and some other things, and I'll tell you, I see the fairgrounds maybe in a really different light. I see a flat track, I see a motocross track, I see endurocross, I see that connected or potentially connected with the ATV track. you know, kind of all massaged together, and I see that as a starting point for, or maybe not a starting point, but a stopping point for those of you that don't know, it's called the Trans-America Trail. It starts in Tennessee and it ends up coming through here and ends up over the coast of Port Orford. And it's pretty much dual sport bikes that are doing this nowadays. We are also part of the Oregon Outback Trail number 5, which is a connectivity trail that Richie was talking about, that pretty much goes from California up to Canada. So we have a lot of potential in Lake County. You know, most of us have some type of an ATV, OHV vehicle, whatever. Scott and another gentleman, Daniel Tagg, who's with the Sheriff's Department, they teach and train safe ATV use. So I mean, nowadays, you know, if it doesn't make any difference what age as of this year, I think, like 60 and below or whatever, but everybody's got to have something that says you can train. So with all of these people together, to me, it's kind of important to get something together to where we're talking y'all language, because in working with the Forest Service, when I'm wearing that other hat, you know, we have a responsibility to the public, you know, but on the other side of that, I look at that and I say, but we have a responsibility to them. So if we can educate them, you know, and help understand the partnerships that are already there, we just don't know it, you know, and then at the same time with BLM and Forest Service, they can say, hey, here's what we need to get done. We don't have the money and the manpower to do that. That's where we can step up and say, hey, you know, we'd like to help, you know. So, and I've seen it happen down in the Imperial, actually it's called the Utah Desert. The Student Conservation Association that works hand in hand with BLM and the Forest Service asked some off-roaders to come out and help refurbish some trails that were no longer being used. When we got done doing that, you could not tell that there was a trail or a road even there. You know, so that's kind of what Richard was leading on to, and Nicole, you were leading on to, as far as kind of what we can do to help. But I will caution everyone that these things need to be well discussed and well thought out, and we need to be above board when it comes to dealing with each other, with the agencies, because sometimes what happens is these get elevated to the point to where we don't have the authority. And what I mean is when a proposal comes up and it either goes to the BLM district manager or to the forest supervisor, they may not have the horsepower at that point to make the decision that says, yeah, you can do this, because it may be a national plan like Chris had mentioned earlier, you know, that may have some direction. So I would just caution us as a group to do that. But I will share with you, and working with Chris, and even though Nicole, you're new, at least here, that as of today, I don't have any reason not to distrust Chris. I like him, you know, and he and I have talked a lot about this off-road stuff, and the Tour de Outback and a bunch of other stuff that goes on here in town. But I look at him as my educator, because this is all new area for me. So I guess my gist for this is I want to be an active participant, and I want to be able to help, but at the same time, I have to be cautious because of who puts milk in my refrigerator. You know, so I kind of walk on eggshells, but I'm more than willing to do what I can to help. And like I said earlier, my wife and I created a club that was AMA sanctioned, ATVA sanctioned. We did belong to the Off-Road Business Association. We did belong to we belonged to the California Off-Road Association. That was Corda, I guess. I was a SCORE member. I mean, all of these things that help out with these things. And I would challenge us to take a look at those and see what they can do for us, because when it comes time for another group to challenge us, if we don't have our ducks in a row, it could be very damaging in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of my spiel. I did send around a sign-up list because we should have done that, and I would suggest when we do these meetings that we actually introduce ourselves so we know who we're with and who we're talking to.
Sure.
And also, because we do have the newspaper here, that there needs to be a disclaimer initially when he starts out recording saying, oh, by the way, I'm recording. you know, and it can be used in a newspaper or whatever else, because, in my experience, that if we don't do something like that, then all of us end up in that same pot. So, anyway. So that's kind of who I am, what I am, and like I said, when I kicked off, you know, I don't know why I ended up in Lakeview, but there's a reason, and I think maybe this might be part of it, and I'm looking really, really forward to trying to do what I can do to help out.
Sounds like we got a lot of people working for the same goal, so now we just gotta organize it and make it happen. I know that with the snowmobile club, the club is required to have insurance for, if you're maintaining things for the government, your club has to be insured. And you have to insure not just the club, but the Forest Service or the BLM, or if it goes through a private area, the private landowners need to be insured. So there's gonna be some monies involved in doing this. And so, you know, I think that there should be some kind of a dues for the club, but I don't think the dues should be so big that it, you know, scares people away. It's a tough economy out there. Also, if we're affiliated with, like the AMA, American Motorcycle Association, or a larger group, the Blue Ribbon Coalition, if they've got dues to be members of their club organization, we should have that as part of our dues that goes towards that. I know that just dues alone, just from my experiences with other clubs, isn't gonna do it. So there's gonna have to be some fundraisers, poker runs, things like that that are fun, that are gonna attract people, and you know, and a lot of the times you can go to local businesses and get things donated, prizes and stuff to help bring more people in, so that we can get a lot of this stuff accomplished. You know, a lot of it's gonna be just our own manpower and, you know, putting that $100 into the gas tank in the truck and your quads and stuff, and just going out and doing it. So it's a personal, I don't know, you're donating a lot of your personal time and a lot of your energies toward it also, that it doesn't need to consume everybody. You know, there's a lot of things that we can share, and if we make it fun, I think that we'll have more people that are involved. So those are my thoughts on that. And does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have anything that they want to add?
So to help with the insurance thing, AMA, I just pulled it up again to make sure that AMA goes to what a company called K&K Insurance. They do a lot of sanctioned events, which includes poker runs. One-day events, their insurance for those events, special use in the BLM Forest Service world, they provide like $1 million coverage, but it's for a very minimal amount compared to if you hold a sanctioned race of some time. And there's a lot of verbiage difference between having fun, as you're saying, and having a sanctioned event where you're chasing points and money and stuff like that. So I'm trying to remember back when, but if I remember, I just read something about BLM's getting ready to charge $5 a person. Is that close, Chris?
I'm not getting ready to, they do.
They were going, it used to be like $1 a head, and now I think it's like $5 a head, or at least they're proposing $5 a head for folks who use, for special use permit. I haven't seen what Forest Service asked for, but my guess it's similar.
It depends on
The size?
size and so if you have a big group event and you're not charging a fee to participate, it's cheaper to get the permit
Right.
than if you're charging a fee, then it's a percentage of the fee.
Right.
But otherwise, it's like $100 if it's over 75 people
Mhm.
for a group organized event.
But there still is an insurance requirement for liability.
There is
correct?
an insurance requirement for the permit.
So there has to be a rider. So whether it be, and I'm not sure about Blue Ribbon, I know AMA, ATVA for sure does provide insurance, especially to a chartered organization. And the costs are pretty competitive. I was in New Mexico for a couple of years in Carlsbad and was getting ready to do some more of this kind of stuff. But actually, it would have involved cars, trucks, and buggies, and bikes and quads, and then stock cars, because of the location of where it was at. I actually found that it was cheaper to go through AMA for bikes and quads, and then go through another company out of Florida for the big stuff. But that's something that's worthwhile to shop around for, to find out what these organizations can provide for us, because sometimes you're just throwing your money away if you're not paying attention. And it may not have the liability levels that are needed.
I have done a little bit of research on the insurance myself. The Snowmobile Club, the High Desert Stormtroopers, the local snowmobile club, goes through V&V Insurance, and that's the reason they do that is because it's the official insurance of the Oregon State Snowmobile Association. But they also offer the same type of insurance for ATV clubs, very, very reasonable. And it covers your base coverage, covers a lot of different things, a lot of events. Nothing that is racing though. You can have runs, radar speed runs, things like that. But as soon as you put two people side by side, it's null and void, and you got to get a special type of insurance for that. It also covers poker runs and hot dog, selling hot dogs somewhere, or whatever type of thing. Any kind of fundraisers, club rides, things like that. And then if you're having a larger event, then you have to apply for that larger event and then pay the insurance for that event. But I'm sure it's real similar with KK. But there's a couple of them out there. You can research it and find out what's going to fit our needs the best, get the best price. And I know that if we're a chartered club and affiliated with Blue Ribbon Coalition or AMA or whoever we decide that we want to be affiliated with, that the price comes down. So.
I was just gonna say, I remember that with the Snowmobile Club, we had a life insurance policy too.
Yeah,
It was $1,000, wasn't much, but
right.
it included in your dues.
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is that anytime that you're out riding, if, like with the Snowmobile Club, what we do is, we have whatever our events are that we hold every year, and then we say that every weekend in between is a scheduled club ride. And so that when you're out riding, you're covered through that insurance. It's not like your vehicle's covered or anything, but you are covered for any injuries that happen while you're out there. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I guess some of the things that we really need to talk about then, that everybody needs to think about, having a good name for the club is one. You gotta think about how people that aren't so motorcycle ATV friendly would think about the name. So if you have the Mud Screaming Daredevils or something like that, then you're gonna have people focusing on that and trying to knock us down. So it needs to be something that's a little more friendly to everybody, but that says a little something about our area and about what we are. So think about that, and I'll try to get another. This is the initial start of things. I'll try to get together once a month until we get organized and get some officers and things like that, and then those officers can take control of how things are going. In the meantime, I'll take that role and try to keep things rolling. So if anybody wants to help, I'm a busy guy. I work between 60 and 65 hours a week down at the shop. So I would love any help in any way. So is there anything else? Did you want to add anything, Scott? You just
No, I'm working for Chris in recreation.
okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, and you're pretty good. You said what you need to say and heard.
At least with that camera on over there.
Yeah.
I wonder if it'd be really good to get a hold of other states like Oh, just, my daughter lives in St. George, Utah, and I go there, and it's amazing, the four-wheelers and the off-road stuff you see,
Yeah,
traveling through town.
yeah,
It's
Utah and
unbelievable.
Arizona.
And I thought, the money they bring in there is just amazing.
I have the presentation that we gave to the town of Lakeview and to the county commissioners. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and it pretty much echoed what you just said. I'm trying to remember, but it was an obnoxious amount of money that they were bringing in, you know, and it's just not Utah. There are other states that have very welcoming.
Nevada, I
Lakeview
think, does
policy.
too.
Nevada does, Arizona, even on the East Coast over the Smokies over there,
It's
yeah.
odd, you drive down the road, 70, 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and you look over on the side road, here you see a four-wheeler doubles and stuff going down the
Yeah.
road, because they can
Yeah.
drive anywhere except
Yeah.
for the main
Yeah.
highways.
Interesting how they've been doing it.
Is there anything else? Okay, we'll be getting a hold of everybody and spread the word, you know, spread the word.